Hello, Amanda here. Today I'm sharing a really sweet project with you, the Cozy Petals Baby Blanket. This is the baby-sized version of my Cozy Petals design. There's a separate video tutorial for the full-size throw on my channel. The baby size is made from a soft, chunky yarn that's also full of amazing texture. It measures 32.5 by 32.5 inches, which is 82.5 by 82.5 centimetres. This size is perfect for strollers and the car seat, and it would make a really nice playmat as well. I actually made two versions of this blanket, one with sea glass as the background colour and one using a soft blush shade called Rosewater. You'll find timestamps below so you can head straight to the section you need, and don't forget that the free written pattern is available on my blog maisieandruth.com. And there's also a printable PDF version in my Etsy shop. Both are linked in the description box below. For this blanket I used Lion Brand yarns Hue and Me, and it's by 2 of Wands. It's a chunky wool blend. It's made from 80% acrylic, 20% wool. You can see it's a bulky number 5 weight yarn, and it comes in 4.4 ounce 125 gram balls. There's 137 yards, 125 meters in every ball, and it's machine washable and dryable. I used the color Salt and I used the color Mustard. For the pink blanket I used the color Rosewater. And for the blue-green blanket, I used the colour Sea Glass. You can find the exact quantity of yarn I used in the free pattern, which is linked below, and I'll also pop the information in the description box as well. For the crochet hook, you'll need a 9mm crochet hook. I used the one by Clover, and this hook is really good. Your yarn will not stick at all. It will glide really smoothly through your chunky yarn. You'll need a pair of scissors, a yarn needle for weaving in your ends, and I would recommend that you use a stitch marker, especially if you're a beginner. If you can't find Lion Brand Hue and Me, you can substitute with another bulky weight 5 yarn, such as Brava Bulky, Premier Yarns Anti-Pilling Bamboo Chunky, Paintbox Yarns Wool Blend Chunky, and Hayfield Bonus Chunky. Each blanket is made from 9 flower granny squares, just 3 rows by 3 rows, and each square measures 10 inches, which is 25 centimetres. The flowers are worked with mustard as the centre, and then salt for the petals, and the background colour is worked using either sea glass here or Rosewater, as you can see here. And then to join our squares, we're going to use the slip stitch seam, and it's really quick and easy to do. It's really pretty, and it makes sure that your blanket will lie completely flat. And to finish off the blanket and to frame it really nicely, we'll do a very quick and easy border. So it's just 3 simple rounds. We'll do a round of double crochet, then we'll change colours, and we'll do a round of single crochet and then finish it off with some really pretty shell stitches here. We'll start off by making a magic circle, and to make the magic circle we're first going to make a slip knot. So to make the slip knot, you're going to grab the working yarn that's coming from the yarn ball here, and we're going to make a loop. So just make a loop like this, and then pass the working yarn under and through this loop. So I'll show you again. pass the yarn under and through the loop, and then we've made another loop here. And then grab your hook and insert your hook from the back to the front. So from the back to the front like this. And then I'm just going to move the working yarn so it's over on the left hand side like this. And then I'm just going to pick it up, and there's your magic circle. And then I'm going to make a chain of 2, 1 and 2. And this chain 2 counts as our first stitch. And if you like, I'm just going to pull on the little yarn tail here to make the circle a little bit smaller, like this. And then into the middle of the ring, I'm going to work 9 double crochet. So just going into the center of the ring here. There's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Just going to close the ring up a little bit more. 6, 7, 8 and 9. So if we take a look, I have my chain 2 here, 1 and 2, and then I have 9 double crochet. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 and 9. And then I'm just going to close the gap here in the middle. So I'm just going to pull on the yarn tail to close the gap. And then to join the round, I'm going to slip stitch into the beginning chain 2. So we have the chain 2 at the beginning, 1 and 2, and I'll insert my hook just through the top of the chain 2, and then the little yarn tail here that we've been working over, I'm going to pop that over my hook, and then I'm going to make my slip stitch. And by putting this yarn tail over the hook, it means that we've trapped this yarn tail, and when we come to work round number 2, the next round, we can work over this little yarn tail here to secure it, and it makes sure that the center of our circle here doesn't unravel. And then grab your scissors and cut your yarn, pull the yarn through, And I just want to secure this little yarn tail, so I'm going to insert my hook. So where we slip stitched into the top of the chain 2, I'm just going to insert my hook from back to front. So 1 and 2, and then insert your hook from back to front through that top chain, and then grab your yarn tail, wrap it around your hook and pull that yarn tail through. And we'll weave over this yarn tail. We'll work over this yarn tail when we do round number 2, and that's the end of round number 1. For round number 2, grab the next colour, which in my case is this cream colour, the colour Salt, and you can attach your yarn to any stitch. I'm just going to come to, so here's the chain 2 that we slip stitched into at the end of the round. So I'm just going to come to this next double crochet here. So just right beside the chain 2, and I'm going to insert my hook with the slip knot on it. So insert your hook into the top of that stitch, and then make a slip stitch, and then I'm going to begin with a chain of 2, 1 and 2, and the chain 2 counts as our first stitch, and then back into the same stitch. So right at the base of the chain 2 here, I'm going to work 1 double crochet, and I'm just going to work over these 2 little yarn tails as well. So make 1 double crochet, just pop them over your hook, so we now have 1 and 2 stitches into the very same stitch, and if you like, you can pop a stitch marker into the top of the chain 2. So 1 and 2 into the top. I'm just going to pop a stitch marker because this is the stitch that we'll be slip stitching into at the end of the round to join. And then I'm going to work 2 double crochet into the next 9 stitches. So moving on to the next stitch here, I'm going to work 1 double crochet, and then another double crochet back into the same stitch. So there's my 2 double crochet worked into the same stitch. Move on to the next double crochet here, and into that stitch work 2 double crochet, there's my 2 double crochet into the same stitch. Move on to the next stitch and work 2 double crochet, so you see the pattern. We're going to work 2 double crochet into each stitch all the way around. I've been working my 2 double crochet into each stitch all the way around, and I have 1 stitch left here. So I'm going to work my last 2 double crochet in here, So if we take a look, you should have 10 sets of your 2 double crochet. So there's set number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 and 10. So that means we have 20 stitches in total. And then to join the round, I'm going to slip stitch into the top of that chain 2 where we have the stitch marker. So just going through that chain 2 and working a slip stitch. For round number 3, we're going to begin by moving on to the next stitch here, and into the top of the next stitch we're going to work a slip stitch. And then we're going to make a chain of 2, 1 and 2, and then back into the same stitch here. We're going to work 1 treble crochet. To work the treble crochet, we want to yarn over hook twice, insert your hook back into the same stitch. So right at the base of that chain 2, then we're going to pull up a loop, and you'll have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through the first 2 loops. You'll have 3 loops. Yarn over, pull through the next 2 loops. You'll have 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. And there's the treble crochet. And then move on to the next stitch here, and into this stitch we're going to work 3 treble crochet. So we're going to yarn over hook twice again, insert your hook into the next stitch and work your treble crochet. And we want to do 2 more back into the same stitch so that we have a total of 3. So there's 2. And number 3. So there's our 3 treble, 1, 2 and 3, all worked into the same stitch. And then moving on to the next stitch here, we're going to work 1 treble crochet. And then back into the same stitch, we'll work 1 double crochet. So there's our treble and our double crochet all worked into the same stitch. And then we'll move along to the next stitch in here, and we'll work a slip stitch. And there's our first petal, and we're going to have 5 of these petals in total. So to work the next petal, we're going to work into the next stitch here. We're going to work 1 double crochet, so there's our double crochet, and then back into the same stitch we're going to work a treble crochet. So there's the double and the treble, all worked into the same stitch. And then into the next stitch here, we're going to work 3 treble crochet. So yarn over hook twice, and work your 3 treble crochet into the next stitch. So there's 1, 2, and 3. 1, 2 and 3 all worked into the same stitch. And then moving on to the next stitch here, we'll work 1 treble, so there's the treble crochet, and then back into the same stitch we'll work 1 double crochet. So there's our treble and our double worked into the same stitch, and then into the next stitch we'll work a slip stitch. And there's our second petal here. So we're going to repeat this little sequence here. We're going to repeat that 3 times more. So I'll show you one more time. Moving on to the next stitch here, we'll work 1 double crochet. And then back into the same stitch we'll work 1 treble crochet. So a double and a treble into the same stitch, and then into the next stitch here we'll work 3 treble crochet. So there's 1, 2, and 3. There's my 3 treble crochet worked into the same stitch. Then move on to the next stitch, work a treble crochet, and a double crochet into the same stitch. So my treble and my double into the same stitch. And then to finish the petal, we'll work a slip stitch into the next stitch. So there's our third petal. So we need 2 more. So I'm going to work this little sequence again off camera. So we need 5 in total, so I'm going to do this little sequence twice more, and once I've got my 5 petals I'll meet you back at the end of the round and we'll close the round together. I've been working my petals all the way around, so I have 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5, and the last stitch is the slip stitch. So I worked the sequence here, there's my treble and my double. And then to work my slip stitch, I'm actually going to work it just at the base of the beginning chain 2. So there's 1 and 2, there's the chain 2. I'm just going to insert my hook into this little, just at the base of the chain 2 through these 2 loops here. So it's a little bit tight, but just pop your hook through and then work a slip stitch. And that's the end of round number 3. And this is what your work will look like at the end of round number 4. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 petals, and you should have 40 stitches in total. And don't forget to count these little slip stitches in between each petal when you're counting that you have the correct number of stitches. For round number 4, we're going to make a chain of 6. And when you're doing your chain of 6, do it fairly tightly. You don't want it too loose. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. So you can see it's not super tight, but it is nice and compact. And then once you've made your chain of 6, you're going to skip the first petal here, and we're going to come to the slip stitch. So the slip stitch here, that's in between these 2 petals. So this little slip stitch, and we're going to work 1 slip stitch in here. And there's our first chain of 6. And don't worry, we'll be moving this to the back of our work once we've finished. We'll do that again. We'll make a chain of 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Again, not too tight, not too loose, nice and compact. And then skip the petal here and come to the next slip stitch that's between these 2 petals, and we'll join with a slip stitch in here. So there's our second chain of 6. Chain of 6 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And then skip the next petal, come over to the slip stitch here, work a slip stitch. So there's our third chain of 6, then chain of 6 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. Come to the next slip stitch here, work a slip stitch, and then chain of 6 again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 6. And we've come back to the beginning again, so I'm just going to slip stitch into the very first slip stitch here where the first chain 6 is coming out of. So right in here, going to work my slip stitch. and I'm just going to make one chain there and then cut my yarn, leave a little yarn tail, pull the yarn through, and we're now going to move these chains to the back like this. So there's our petal, and if we look over to the back, we have our 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We have our 5 chain 6 spaces here. For round number 5, we'll begin with the front of our work facing towards us, and I've grabbed the next colour, and I'm using the colour Rosewater here, and we're going to come to, so just push the petal forward, and we're going to come to any chain 6 space. I'm just going to choose the chain 6 space where we finished off, and into this space here I'm going to insert my hook. I'm going to work over this little yarn tail, and I'm going to attach my yarn with a slip stitch and then make a chain of 2, 1 and 2, and the chain 2 counts as my first stitch, and then back into the same space here I'm going to work 7 double crochet, and work over these little yarn tails here. So there's number 1, and if you like you can pop a stitch marker into the top of the chain 2. So we want to make 7 double crochet, so that's number 1, number 2, three, 4, 5, 6, and 7. So including the chain 2 here, which counts as our first stitch, you should have 8 stitches in total. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 and 8. And we're going to work 8 double crochet into each chain 6 space here at the back. So moving on to the next chain 6 space here, I'm going to work 8 double crochet, so there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 7, and 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, and 8. And we're just going to work our 8 double crochet into each chain 6 space all the way around. I've been working my 8 double crochet into every chain 6 space. So here's the first chain 6 space here with 8 double crochet, then 8 double crochet in the next space, 8 double crochet here, 8 double crochet in this space, and 8 double crochet in the last chain 6 space. So this is what it looks like on the back. And then to join the round, I'm going to slip stitch into the top of the beginning chain 2 here. So you should have 40 stitches in total. So I'm going to join with a slip stitch into the top of that chain 2, 1 and 2. And that's the end of round number 5. At the moment, as you can see, our flower is a circle, and we're now going to turn the circle into a square in round number 6. So to begin, start with a chain of 3, 1, 2, and 3, and the chain 3 counts as your first stitch. And then back into the very same stitch here where we made the chain 3. So right in here, we're going to work one extended double crochet. And to make the extended double crochet, we're going to yarn over hook, insert your hook into the same stitch at the base of the chain 3 here, yarn over and pull up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over and pull through the first loop only. So very similar to the regular double crochet, but instead of pulling through the first 2 loops, we're just going to pull through that first loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through the next 2 loops. You'll have 2 loops on your hook, yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. And that's the extended double crochet. And then we're going to work one double crochet into the next 9 stitches. So moving on to the next stitch here into this double crochet, I'm going to work a regular double crochet. So there's one double crochet, moving on to the next stitch. There's 2. 3. 4. 5. 6. 7. 8. And 9. So there's our 9 double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then we're going to work into the next stitch here. We're going to work a corner. And to work the corner, we're going to work 2 extended double crochet chain 2 and 2 extended double crochet. So yarn over hook, insert your hook into the next stitch here, yarn over, pull up a loop. You'll have 3 loops. Yarn over, pull through the first loop only. You'll have 3 loops. Yarn over, pull through the next 2 loops. You'll have 2 loops. Yarn over, pull through the last 2 loops. So there's your first extended double crochet. We'll make another one. Then we'll chain 2, 1 and 2, and then back into the very same stitch we'll work 2 extended double crochet. So back into the same stitch here, we'll work our extended double crochet. So there's 2 extended double crochet, 1 and 2, a chain 2, 1 and 2, and 2 extended double crochet, all worked into the same stitch. And there's our corner there. And then we're going to work 1 double crochet into the next 9 stitches. So moving on to the next stitch here. There's 1, 2, 3, and 9. So I've just worked my 9 double crochet. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and 9. And then I'm going to work another corner into the next stitch here. So moving on to the next double crochet here, I'm going to work 2 extended double crochet. So there's my 2 extended double crochet, and then a chain 2, 1 and 2, and then 2 extended double crochet back into the same stitch. So there's 1 and then another 1. So 2 extended double crochet, chain 2, 2 extended double crochet, and there's my other corner there. And I'm just going to repeat this little section here. So into the next 9 stitches, I'm going to work my 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, my 9 double crochet, and then I'll work my corner into the next stitch. So I'm going to do my 9 double crochet here, then a corner, and then I'm going to finish with 9 double crochet here. And then once we get back to the beginning, we started the corner here, so we'll finish the corner off together. I've been working my stitches all the way around, so we started here. And we started our first corner, and then we worked 9 double crochet, and then we worked our corner here, then 9 double crochet, and then a next corner here, then 9 double crochet, and then a corner here, and I've just finished working 9 double crochet along here, and to finish we're going to work right in here, just at the base of the chain 3. We're going to finish the corner off with 2 extended double crochet. So there's 1 extended double crochet and then another one back into the same stitch. So there's my extended double crochet, 1 and 2, and then we'll make a chain of 1, and then coming over to the beginning chain 3 here, so 1, 2 and 3, so into the top of that chain 3 I'm going to work 1 single crochet. So there's my single crochet, and that's the end of round number 6, and you should have 13 stitches on each side of the square. So you should have 13 stitches here, 13 here, 13 stitches here, and 13 along here. So this is one side here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12 and 13. So 13 stitches along each side. For round number 7, which is the last round of our square, we're going to begin by working a chain of 3. So 1, 2 and 3, and the chain 3 counts as our first stitch. And then we're going to work into this space here. We're going to work part of our first corner, and we're actually going to work into the space here. And we're going to work 1 extended double crochet. So working into the space this time. There's our extended double crochet, and we'll finish off the corner when we come back around again. And then into the next 13 stitches. So into the next 13 stitches all the way along to the next corner here. We're going to work 1 double crochet. So remember, this chain 3 counts as a stitch, so you'll work a double crochet in the top of that chain 3 here. So a regular double crochet. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 and 13 into the last double crochet here. So I've just worked my 13 double crochet. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. And then we want to make a corner in this chain 2 corner space here. So the corners are exactly the same, we'll work 2 extended double crochet into that chain 2 space. So working into the spaces in this round. So there's my 2 extended double crochet, chain 2, and then another 2 extended double crochet back into the same space. So there's our corner, 2 extended double crochet, chain 2, and 2 extended double crochet. And then along here, we'll just repeat this part here. So into the next 13 stitches, we're going to work 1 double crochet. So 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. So moving on to the next stitch here, we'll work 1 double crochet. So just regular double crochets along the sides. So there's number 2. Number 3 and number 13. So I've just worked my 13 double crochet, and then we're going to work a corner into the next chain 2 space here. So 2 extended double crochet, chain 2, and 2 extended double crochet back into the same chain 2 corner space. And there's our corner. So as you can see, we've worked 2 corners already. So we're just going to repeat the sequence. So along here, we'll work 13 double crochet. Then when we get to the next corner here, we'll work a corner in here. Then we'll work 13 double crochet along here. So I'm going to do this section off camera, and I'll meet you back at the beginning of the round, and we'll just finish off this corner here together and we'll close the round. I've been working those stitches all the way around. So we started here, then I worked 13 double crochet, I worked a corner, 13 double crochet and then a corner, 13 double crochet and then a corner, and I've just worked my 13 double crochet. So I'm going to finish this corner here because we started with a chain 3 and an extended double crochet, so that forms half of the corner. So back into this space here, I'm going to work my 2 extended double crochet, so working into that space, and then I'm going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and I'm actually going to make an invisible join. You can either slip stitch into the top of that chain 3 to join, so 1, 2 and 3. You can make a slip stitch, or to make it easier when you're actually seaming at the end, so there's my chain 2, you can make an invisible join. So grab your scissors and cut your yarn, and then pull the yarn through, and then grab your yarn needle, and I'll show you how to make the invisible join. So to make the invisible join, grab your yarn needle here, weave the yarn tail through the eye of the needle, and then we have the beginning chain 3 here, 1, 2 and 3. We're going to skip that chain 3 and we're going to move over to the next double crochet here, and we're going to work under both these loops, but we're going to come from the back through to the front, and we're going to pick up the top 2 loops here. So coming through from the back to the front under both those loops, bring the needle through, and then come over to the last chain here where the yarn is coming out of, and I'm going to insert my needle through this loop here. So you have this loop, the back loop of the chain, and then the front loop. I'm just going to insert it, and I'm going to insert it downwards like this. Pull the yarn through like this, and that will, as you pull it, it will create over here a stitch over the chain 3 here. I'm just going to pull on it slightly, and then I'm going to bring my needle and I'm going to come to the stitch that we just created, and I'm going to insert my needle under both loops, and I'm going to pull the yarn through and just pull on it some more. And there's our invisible join, and it sits directly over that beginning chain 3. And then I'm just going to turn my work over. I'm just going to go through this back loop here, pull the needle through, and I'm just going to weave this little yarn tail into the back of my work. So at the end of round number 7, you should have 17 stitches on each side of the square. And if we take a look at the measurement, the square should measure about 10 inches. So it's a square, so 10 inches by 10 inches, which is about 25 centimetres. about 25 centimetres. This step is completely optional, but I did block out the petals of the squares. So I used a handheld steamer and I just gently steamed the petals to gently relax and flatten the edges of the stitches. If you don't have a handheld steamer, you could also use the steam from your iron if that's what you have on hand. Just make sure not to let the iron actually touch the yarn because the heat can melt or damage the acrylic fibres. When doing this seam, we want to make sure that the wrong sides are facing towards you. So we want the right sides. So the right side is the side that will be on display, and the wrong side is the back of your work. So we want the two right sides facing together so that the wrong sides are facing out like this. So I'm just going to come to the bottom corner here where we have the chain 2, and if you remember we have chain 1 and chain 2 here. I'm going to insert my hook, so make a slip knot and pop it on your hook, and then come to this chain here, so chain 1 and chain 2, so the chain that's beside the next double crochet, and just through that back loop here of the chain I'm going to insert my hook and then come to the square on the bottom, and we have chain 1 and chain 2, so into the back loop of the chain that's right beside this double crochet. So just in here I'm going to insert my hook, and then I'm going to make a slip stitch to join the two squares together. And then we're going to be slip stitching all these stitches together, and for this we want to work through the outside loops. So if we take a look at the top of the stitch, so we'll be moving on to the next double crochet here. We have the top of the stitch here. We'll call this the outside loop and we'll call this the inside loop. So we want to work into these outside loops here. And if we look at the square on the bottom, here's the next stitch here. So this is the inside loop. We want to work through the outside loop. So I'm going to come to the top square. Here's the next double crochet, and I'm going to insert my hook through this outside loop here, and then go to the square on the bottom, move along to the next double crochet, insert your hook through that outside loop. And then make a slip stitch. Then go back to the square on top, move over to the next double crochet here, insert your hook through that outside loop, go to the square on the bottom, insert your hook through the outside loop of the next double crochet along, and make a slip stitch. Move over to the top square again, move along to the next double crochet, insert your hook into that outside loop, So into that outside loop only. And on the square on the bottom, here's the next double crochet. Insert your hook into that outside loop. Make a slip stitch. So I'm going to work in this way all the way up to the next corner here. I've been working my slip stitches all the way up to the next corner, and I just joined the last 2 double crochet on each side, and now I have the next chain 2 space, so 1 and 2, and then we have the 2 chains here, 1 and 2. So I'm going to come to the first chain here, and just through the back loop of that first chain, I'm going to insert my hook and then come to the square on the bottom, and here's 1 and 2. I'm just going to work through the first chain on the bottom square, and I'll just go through that back loop. So just through the back loop here, and then make a slip stitch. And that's us finished with the first 2 squares. And if we take a look at the front, this is what the seam looks like from the front. And then on the back, it looks like this. So now that we've joined the first 2 squares, we're then ready to join the next 2 squares. So you'll grab the next 2 squares. So we're just going to close these squares together here, and then put the right sides facing together here. And then we're ready to continue with our slip stitch seam. So moving on to the next 2 squares, I'm going to pick up the square on the top here, and I'm going to come to the chain 2 in the corner. So we have 1 and 2. So I'm just going to come to the chain that's beside the first double crochet. So into this chain here, into that back loop, insert your hook, come to the square on the bottom, and here's the chain 2 here, 1 and 2. So I'm going to start in this chain again that's closest to the next double crochet, and into the back loop of that chain I'm going to insert my hook, and then join with a slip stitch. And this is how you'll connect every time you add your extra squares. And then we're just going to continue in the same way that we've been working. We're just going to work our slip stitch seam all the way up to the next corner, and then we'll grab the next 2 squares and we'll join those squares together just like we did here. So just going to work our slip stitch seam. So here's the next double crochet, working into the outside loop of the first stitch, going to the square on the bottom. Here's the next double crochet, working through the outside loop and working our slip stitch. Once you've joined all your squares along one row and you come to the end of that row, to finish, you're just going to, in the last corner, you're just going to come to the first chain here, insert your hook into that back loop, then come to the last corner and insert your chain into that back loop, and then make a slip stitch, and then you'll chain one and then cut your yarn with your scissors, pull the yarn through, and then you'll just weave that little yarn tail into the back of your work. Once we've done all our horizontal seaming, we'll then do our vertical seaming. So I'll demonstrate here. We'll basically attach our yarn in exactly the same way. I'll show you in just a minute. But when we get to this section here, it's a little bit different, so I'll show you what to do when we get to this little junction here. So again, we want the right sides of our squares facing together. So I'm just going to flip. So we're going to be joining all the way up this row here. So I'm just going to turn the squares over so that the right sides are facing in. And then we're going to join all the way along here. And then I'll show you what to do here, and then you'll just continue seaming all the way up. So we're just going to start in exactly the same way as we did before. Pop the slip knot on your hook, come to the top square here, into the very first chain beside the next double crochet, into that back loop, insert your hook, come to the bottom square. We have the chain 1 and the chain 2 into the chain that's beside the first double crochet, just into that back loop. Insert your hook, join with a slip stitch, and then work your slip stitch seam all the way along to this section here. I've been working my slip stitch seam all the way along, and I've just got one double crochet left here on the top square, one double crochet left on the bottom square here. So I'm just going to join these two double crochets together. And then I have one chain left here in the next corner. So just going through that back loop of this chain here, and then moving to the square on the bottom, we have one chain left here. I'm just going to work through that back loop and make a slip stitch. And then I'm going to chain one and then move over to the next. So we're just going to skip right over this seam here, move over to the next two squares on the other side of the seam, and we have one chain one here left. So it's beside the first double crochet here. So I'm just going to go through the back loop of that chain and then come to the square on the bottom. We have one chain left here, so just go through that back loop, make a slip stitch, And this is what we're going to do when we get to this intersection here. So there will be one chain on this side, you'll slip stitch that together, make a chain one, and then jump over to the next two squares on the other side, work through the chains, and then we're just going to continue working our seam all the way up until you get to the next junction here. So moving on to the next double crochet, working through those outside loops. Here's the next double crochet here. Just going to work that slip stitch seam. So I'm going to join my squares together off camera, and I'll meet you back once I've joined all my squares, and then we'll work on the border, which is nice and simple, and it works up really quickly. To begin working on the border, I'm going to grab my pink coloured yarn. I've made a slip knot, I've popped it on my hook, and then you can come to any corner of the blanket. So I'm just going to come to this corner here and into, I'll just show you with my needle, we have the chain 2 here, and then we have the first double crochet here. I'm going to attach my yarn into this back loop only of this chain here, and it's the chain that's right beside the first double crochet. So just into this back loop. So I'll insert my hook, and then I'll attach my yarn with a slip stitch, and then I'm going to make a chain of 2. So there's 1 and 2, and the chain 2 counts as our first stitch, and then back into the very same chain here I'm going to work 1 double crochet, so back into that chain, and I'm just going to work over this little yarn tail, so just pop it over your hook. So there's my double crochet, and if you like you can pop your stitch marker into the top of the chain 2, 1 and 2. And then we're going to be working into the back loops for this first round of the border. So if we move on to the next stitch here, I'm going to work into the back loop, and then move along to the next stitch, work into the back loop, and so on. So working into the back loops only. And we're just going to work 1 double crochet into the back loop of every stitch. So here's the first double crochet here, into that back loop, moving on to the next stitch, into that back loop only, moving along to the next stitch, into that back loop, so I'm going to work 1 double crochet into the back loop only of every stitch until we get to the first seam area here, and when we get to the seam I'll show you how to work this section here. I've been working one double crochet into the back loop of every stitch, and I've come to the seam here. So I'm just going to work into the last double crochet here. I'll work my double crochet into the back loop. And then we have the space here in the corner, and we have one chain here that's unworked. So just get my needle. So we have one chain here, and I'm just going to work into the back loop only of this chain here on this side, so in here. And then if we jump over the seam and we come to the next corner here, we have one chain here. I'm going to work into the back loop only of this chain here. So here's the double crochet, here's the chain that's unworked, so we'll just work into this back loop. And over the seams we're going to work one extended double crochet two together, and the extended double crochet is a little bit different from the regular double crochet. So to make the extended double crochet two together, yarn over hook, insert your hook into the back loop only of that chain on this side, yarn over, pull up a loop. You'll have 3 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through the first loop only. You'll have 3 loops. Yarn over, pull through the next 2 loops. You'll have 2 loops. Then yarn over, come over to the other chain here, and into that back loop only of the chain, insert your hook. Yarn over, pull up a loop. You'll have 4 loops on your hook. Yarn over, pull through the first loop only, so just the first loop. You'll have 4 loops. Yarn over, pull through the next 2 loops. You'll have 3 loops, and then when you have 3 loops, yarn over and pull through all 3 loops. And that's your extended double crochet two together. And then we'll just continue to work into the back loop only of every stitch until we get to the next seam. And then when you get to the next seam, you'll work your extended double crochet across the 2 chains. So moving on to the next stitch, into that back loop only, we'll work 1 double crochet, so along this first side I've been working 1 double crochet into the back loop only of every stitch, and then at the seams I worked my extended double crochet 2 together. Here's the other one. I've worked into the back loop only along to the next corner of the blanket here, and I'm going to show you what to do when you get to each corner. So in the corner here we have our 2 chains. So here's this chain here and then this chain, and we're going to be working into both these chains here. So when you get to the first chain, into that back loop only, work 2 double crochet, so there's 1, and then another double crochet back into the same chain. So there's my 2 double crochet worked into the same chain, and then make a chain of 2, 1 and 2, and then move over to the next chain here, and into that back loop only, work another 2 double crochet. So there's one and then another one back into the same chain. So we have in the corner now 2 double crochet, chain 2 and 2 double crochet, and they're worked into the back loops of the chains in the corner. And this is what you'll do in every corner of the blanket. And then I'm just going to continue working into the back loop only of every stitch down this side. And then when I get to the next seam, I'll work my extended double crochet 2 together, and then just continue working into the back loop only. Get to the next seam, work my extended double crochet 2 together. And I'm going to work this sequence off camera, and I'll meet you back at the beginning and we'll close the round together and then work on round number 2. So here's the next double crochet here. So I'm just going to go into that back loop only. Moving on to the next stitch, working into that back loop only. I've been working that sequence all the way around the remaining 3 sides of the blanket, so working into the back loop only of every stitch, and then when you get to each seam, working the extended double crochet 2 together. And then I've come back to the beginning of the round here, and we started the first corner here because we worked 2 stitches into that chain, and then we have 1 chain left here, so this chain here. So I'm going to complete the corner by working 2 double crochet into this last chain here. So work your 2 double crochet into that back loop only. So there's 1 and another 1 into the same chain, and then I'm going to chain 2, 1 and 2, and you can either slip stitch into the top of the chain 2 here where we have the stitch marker, or we can make an invisible join. So I'm going to make an invisible join, so I'm just going to grab my scissors and cut my yarn and then pull the yarn through, and then I'm going to thread my yarn tail through the eye of my needle, and then we have the chain 2 here, 1 and 2. I'm going to come over to the next double crochet here, and I'm going to insert my needle from the back to the front under both of these loops, pull the yarn through, and then I'm going to come to, so we have 1 and 2 chains. I'm going to come to that second chain and just through that front loop there, insert my needle down like this, pull the yarn through, and we've created our stitch, top of the stitch over the chain 2 here. So I'm just going to go under both those loops, pull the yarn through, and there's our invisible join right there. And I'm going to weave this, I'm just going to remove my stitch marker, and then I'm just going to weave this yarn tail into the back of my work. And that's the end of round number 1 of the border. To begin working on round number 2, I'm going to grab the next colour here and make a slip knot and pop it on your hook, and then come to any corner of the blanket, and we're going to do the same thing that we did for round number 1. So we have the chain 2 here in the corner. I'm going to come to the back loop only of this chain here, the chain that's right beside the next double crochet, and into that back loop I'm going to attach my yarn. So come to the back loop only of that chain here, and I'm going to attach my yarn by making 1 single crochet. And I'll pop a stitch marker into the top of that single crochet, and then back into the same chain, into that back loop. I'm going to work another single crochet, and I'm going to work over this little yarn tail here. So I've made 2 single crochet, 1 and 2 into the back loop of the same chain, and then for this round we're just going to work into the back loop only again, but we're going to work single crochets. So moving along to the next double crochet here into that back loop, I'm going to work 1 single crochet, then move to the next stitch into that back loop only, work 1 single crochet, so I'm just going to work 1 single crochet into the back loop only of every stitch. When you get to the extended double crochet 2 together, you can see here's the extended double crochet 2 together, and here's the top of that stitch. So you're just going to work 1 single crochet into the back loop only of that stitch. So I've been working 1 single crochet into the back loop only of every stitch, and I'll just show you what I mean. Here's your seam here with the extended double crochet 2 together. So here's the top of that stitch. So I'm just going to work my single crochet into the back loop of that stitch, and then continue as normal, just working 1 single crochet into the back loop of every stitch. So I'm going to work this all the way along to the next corner, and then when I get to the next corner I'll show you what to do. When you get to the corner, you're going to work the following sequence into each corner of the blanket. So if you remember, we have our chain 2, 1 and 2. So we're going to work into the back loop only of each of these chains here. So into the back loop only of the first chain, we're going to work 2 single crochet. So there's 1, and then another 1 back into the same chain. And then moving over to the next chain here, into that back loop only, we'll work 2 single crochet. So there's 1 and 2. So 2 single crochet into the back loop only of the first chain, and then 2 single crochet into the back loop only of the second chain, and then you'll just continue to work your single crochet into the back loop only of every stitch all the way along to the next corner, and then you'll work this little sequence. So here's the next stitch here, so into that back loop only, I'm going to work my single crochet. So nice and simple. I'm going to work this sequence off camera, and I'll meet you back at the beginning. We'll close the round together, and then we'll begin working on round number 3, which is the last round. I've been working one single crochet into the back loop only of every stitch all the way around the blanket, and I've made sure to work in every corner. I worked my two single crochet into the back loop only of the first chain, and then two single crochet into the back loop only of the second chain. And I've come back to the beginning here, and I have one chain left. So we started the corner because we worked two single crochet into that chain here, and then we have one chain left. So into that back loop only, I'm going to finish with two single crochet. So there's one, and then another one back into that back loop. There's number two. And then to join the round, I'm going to slip stitch into the first single crochet here with the stitch marker. So right in there, I'm going to join with a slip stitch. And that's the end of round number two. And we're going to continue with this cream colour here, and we're going to now work round number three, which is the last round of the border. For round number three, we'll begin with a chain of two. So there's one and two. This counts as our first stitch, and then back into the same stitch here. So right at the base of the chain two, I'm going to work two double crochet, and for this round we're going to be working under both loops. So we'll just be going under both loops as normal. So working into that very first stitch here, I'm going to work two double crochet. So there's one, and then back into the same stitch, I'm going to work another double crochet. And if you like, you can pop a stitch marker into the top of the chain two. So one and two. Just going to insert my stitch marker. And then we're going to skip the next stitch. So skip this stitch here, and into the following stitch we'll work one slip stitch. So skip this one, into the next one, work a slip stitch. And then we'll begin working on a sequence, and this is the sequence that you're going to be repeating all the way around the blanket. Apart from the corners, I'll show you what to do in every corner of the blanket. But the sequence begins by skipping the next stitch. So skip the next stitch here. Into the following stitch, we're going to work a shell, and a shell stitch is made up of 4 double crochet. So skip this one, into the next one, work a shell stitch. So there's one. Back into the same stitch, number 2, number 3, and number 4. So there's our shell, 1, 2, 3 and 4 double crochet all worked into the same stitch. Then we'll skip the next stitch, so skip this stitch here, and into the following stitch we're going to work one slip stitch. So there's my slip stitch. So the sequence: skip the next stitch, a shell into the next stitch, skip the next stitch, slip stitch into the following stitch. So I'll show you that sequence again. So we're going to skip the next stitch, a shell into the following stitch. So there's 1, 2, 3 and 4. So our shell 4 double crochet worked into the same stitch, and then we're going to skip the next stitch. So skip this one here into the following stitch, work 1 slip stitch. So I'll do it with you one more time. Skip the next stitch, so skip this one, a shell into the next stitch, 1, 2, 3 and 4. Skip the next stitch, slip stitch into the following stitch. So I'm going to work this sequence all the way along until I get to the next corner here, and I'll show you what to do when we get to the corners of your blanket. I've been working that sequence all the way along the first edge, and I've come to the next corner here. So I worked my slip stitch into this stitch here, and then I'm going to skip the next stitch, and into the following stitch I'm going to work another shell stitch, but this time it's going to be made up of 5 double crochet. So skip the next stitch here, and then into the next stitch work 5 double crochet. So there's 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. So I worked 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 double crochet, and you want to work 5 double crochet when you get to each corner. And then I'm just going to continue on with the sequence all the way down the second edge here. So I'm going to skip the next stitch, and into the following stitch work a slip stitch. And then just continue on, skip the next stitch, work 4 double crochet into the next stitch here. 1, 2, 3 and 4. Skip the next stitch, slip stitch into the following stitch. So I'm just going to repeat this sequence all the way around the blanket, making sure that I work my 5 double crochet into every corner. And I'm going to do this off camera, and I'll meet you back at the beginning and we'll close the round together. I've been working that sequence all the way around the blanket, and I've come back to the beginning. So I just finished with a slip stitch, and we want to complete our beginning corner shell. So we have 1, 2 and 3 that we made at the beginning of the round. So we want to make an extra 2 double crochet so that we have our shell made up of 5 stitches. So right in here where we made our 3 double crochet, I'm going to work 2 double crochet. So there's 1 double crochet and then another double crochet into the same stitch. So now we have our last corner shell of 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5 double crochet, and then I'm just going to slip stitch into the top of that chain 2, 1 and 2 where I have the stitch marker. So I'm just going to slip stitch into that chain 2 here, and then just pull the yarn through, and then I'm just going to go back through the top of that chain 2, and then pull this yarn tail through to the back, and I'm just going to weave my yarn tail into the back of my blanket here. And that's your Cozy Petals Baby Blanket all finished. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this tutorial, please like, subscribe and turn on notifications so you don't miss future crochet tutorials from me. Happy crocheting, and I'll see you in the next video.